Hey, sports fans, it's Socialing the Distance, your favorite programmer with Peter Julian. He is the coach of a Nike-based club. He's down in Scottsdale, Arizona right now for some winter training. Pete, thank you very much for joining us, and thanks for taking a little time with us today.
Of course, Larry. Always happy to talk track with you.
So before we start geeking out, I gave you some trouble, I think, in Doha because one of the name was going around was Bucks Knights. But obviously, you what name? And you're really good. You could be a great poker player. We call it. We say you have a Nike-based club. Will there be some time in the future? Will you actually have a name? Or are you going to do a contest? Or are you just going to keep it kind of mellow the way it is?
It's something where we've been so focused on getting through last summer with the competition and the Diamond League circuit that it was. And obviously now get back into camp and things of that nature that we really haven't had a lot of time to think about it. Sure. We're a pretty a lean group in terms of staffing and so forth. I've got David McHenry and Gabriel Masculu with me here, but it's just, we don't really have that bandwidth to really try to organize all those things right now. Yeah. But it's certainly, I know that's an important thing for our team to have a team name and to have something a little bit that might be something that we can brand a little bit better and so forth, and they can refer themselves to. Everybody likes to be a part of something. We are a close team. I would argue that we're the closest team in the world, the way we've banded together and stuck together and support each other. But it would be nice to have a name, and we are working on it, and I hope at least in the next few months, we'll have something.
Cool. I've observed you as a coach for many years now, and I think you have a pretty complete skill set. But the pandemic over the last year has not only challenged you mentally, physically, but also probably spiritually. What was the biggest challenge? We interviewed Donovan last summer, and he talked about going to Monaco. Tell us a little bit about the craziness involved in trying to get your athletes there.
Well, I'm sure most people have heard, or at least your listeners and viewers, that there is a protocol in place in terms of getting COVID testing, a couple of them, and then when you arrive, there's more COVID testing and so forth. The thing with that is nobody really knew how to do that in May and June of this past summer last year, and just getting the doctors organized that could do it, and the medical folks who can. Now you can go just about to any every other street corner in America, and it's pretty available, or it's readily available for these COVID testing. Back then, it wasn't an easy process, but we knew we needed to do it, and so that fell mostly on me and the meet directors like Jeff Merrill and the guys over at Portland Track when we were starting our little pop-up meets in the summer before we headed over to Europe. It was a pretty big task. I really applaud those guys at Portland Track because really they were the first to do it. And I know a lot of sound running and these other groups and Memphis, everybody started to do them, but it was Portland Track who were the first one to say, oh, you know what, we're having a meet, we're doing it. And there was a lot of hoops they had to jump through. The track was getting moved. It seemed like every day because counties were some counties were hot, some counties weren't. And public officials really didn't have any, there was no playbook for any of this. Mm-hmm. And then there was that anxiety on my part where, how safe is this? At the time, we didn't know am I putting my athletes at risk and so forth. Since then, we've learned that track and field and running is relatively pretty safe. I heard something where over the course of the summer, there was, and I might be wrong, but I heard there was no indication of any positive tests from competition itself. Mm-hmm. So that's encouraging. But we had to go into the summer. It was a bit scary, really, especially when we headed to Europe. we were the only team that ventured and did this. Mm-hmm. And I felt I was taking on a pretty big responsibility from a risk standpoint as well, but worked really closely with folks at OHSU, worked really closely with with USA Track and Field, and how do we do this? How do we do this safely? Up until this day, as you mentioned, we're in Scottsdale now, and it's Arizona's not doing well with coronavirus. So it's something that I'm on my athletes every day, and we've created a bubble. So we came down. So each athlete had to get COVID tested before they even came to camp multiple times. And then when they got to camp, I got them each their own hotel rooms for about a week or longer. And then they each had their own rental cars and stuff so you can get around to different places. And then we had to get COVID tested again before they were even allowed to congregate and come together. So those sort of things from a budget standpoint and from a planning standpoint, you're not really prepared for those things, but you got to do them for athlete safety. I don't know what other programs and so forth are doing, but for me, that's been our priority all along. Is I've just got to try to keep these athletes healthy, and I harp on them all the time, and I know they're sick of it, and I'm always yelling them to pull those masks over their nose and things like that. But we got to get through this together, and I really want to keep these athletes healthy. They don't want this. I know that age group is they tend to be asymptomatic for the most part, and usually when they do get sick, it's not so bad. But some people get very sick, and I wouldn't wish that upon any of my athletes, and some of those long-term effects, especially in an Olympic year where it could take 4 or 5 months to recover from something like this.
One of the challenges in being a coach is, again, dealing with contemporary circumstances. How have you had to fine-tune your training in light of the pandemic?
Yeah, that's interesting. We've had to be so much more flexible. Elite athletes tend to get into these bubbles where they want everything to be their way. They want it to be Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. and Friday morning at 10 a.m. and their massages at this time, and they eat at this time and so forth. They're very structured, and that's why they are champions. And now you take something in as we have now, and you can't get on the track at certain times. We can't get on track. Most of all tracks are closed across the United States. And so you might get approval from the school district and so forth to be at a certain time, but that might be at 6:30 in the morning, or that might be at 8 p.m. and things of that nature. So finding facilities has been tremendously difficult. It's something that I've actually reached out to Vin Lanana about and said, hey, we've got to do a better job, pandemic or not, is we really need USA Track and Field really needs to think about getting some facilities that are for USA Track and Field athletes. And maybe it's just 4 or 5 across the country, but I think it's an investment that we need to make. This really exposed that, is that we just have nowhere to go. You see Boogie Johnson's group, you see Dalil Muhammad doing workouts in a park in LA all day long. How is that acceptable? For our governing bodies to be able to see that. And I think we really need to make that a priority and say, you know what, we've got to get some training centers across the United States, 4 or 5, that elite athletes can utilize and so forth, because it's been really tough. Now we've got the Nike World Headquarters track, but that's only when we're there. But even times at Nike, there's been times where we can't even get on that track just because of everything is closed down and shut down so much.
Have you had
USOC and USA Track and Field and these federations want us to win medals? But we need probably some more support to be able to have some facilities to get on, because we're not part of colleges or things like that nature. These college athletes, God bless them, they could get on their college tracks, and these colleges and high schools are doing the right thing by protecting their student bodies and staff by not allowing other people on these facilities. So I get that, but we need something for the elites and the pros. And I know that sounds a little bit spoiled, but hey, it's professional track and field is a real thing, and we need some facilities.
Yeah, it's been a problem all along. I mean, I remember Rick Rojas in 1976 complaining before he won the AAU that year in cross country. He couldn't get on the local high school track. They chased him off, and it hasn't changed. And it's some schools There's some people have opportunities, but now with the pandemic, it's even crazier. How has nutrition changed at all? Have you had a look? Have you had a look for anything more on your in terms of nutrition during the pandemic? Anything else that you had to be very careful about with your athletes?
No, I think initially there certainly was that concern of just going into the grocery store. You didn't know, is your food exposed? There was so many question marks. And so I think that did make it difficult for some of my athletes, only because how dangerous is it to go into the grocery store? How dangerous is the food? As we learn more about this virus, we realize that risk is pretty low. So I think my athletes in general, from a nutritional standpoint, are really, really solid. You really can't get to this level to be on my team if that's not something that you've prioritized. Here at camp, we don't even talk about it or ask about it and these sort of things, because I know that they have a colorful plate and they do really well. But we do utilize a sports nutritionist in Portland for some of the youngsters who are, if you're just getting out of college, you might not know some of these things.
Yeah.
And so really just to make sure that, hey, this is how you get a balanced diet and so forth. But from a pandemic thing, no, I mean, they know they have to eat so well to be healthy and to be strong and to get through the training that I give them, that it's that pretty much the same lifestyle. They've got to eat well, sleep well, and all these things. That's going to help them, their immune system, but it's also going to help them have a better workout on Friday. One
of your biggest, I think, stories and successes of the last couple of years has been Donovan Brazier. When Donovan went to Doha, there was questions. How would he perform? Would he be able to stand up to it? And he ran, for him, he ran a perfect race. I want to take you back there just for a bit, because I didn't get to talk to you after that. What did you tell Donovan before he went on the track in Doha?
I felt like it was something pretty good, but I can't really remember it now. Actually, I do know what I told him. I told him, when you win, I want you to thank the people that believed in you and don't talk about the people that didn't. Too often, what I don't like as an athlete, or you see an NBA team or so forth, they say, nobody thought we could do it. Well, what about all the fans in the stadium? What about your coaches? What about all the families that actually believed in you along the way?
Yeah.
I was so confident that he was going to win that race. That's what I told him as he walks in the tunnel was, hey, when you win this thing, you remember the people that believed in you. You don't have to give any credence to the people, the critics who thought you were not going to do it or not make it this far. In some ways that empowered Donovan too. He was ready.
Yeah.
That we trained to win those races. And the X's and O's were there and the workouts were there, and we knew who the competition was. And certainly we respect the competition incredible. At any world championship final, you've got 8 to 12 athletes there that can win. But he's Donovan Brazier, and we knew that he had the tools and he had done the work. So that was it. But it's for the man that walks into that arena, that's where the pressure lies. And I know he was nervous, and I know it was a stressful experience for him. People forget that Donovan is very young.
Yeah.
And there are maybe there were critics out there that said, oh, Donovan he kind of yo-yos, or he's not consistent, or we can't count on him only because he didn't make the Olympics right out of in 2016 after he broke the American or the world junior record at the NCAAs. And then I think he got DQ'd at World Indoors and things. And there was this picture being painted as, oh, he's not consistent in these things, but he was a kid. He was 18 or 19. How do he didn't get to go through 4 years of college of learning these things. When he was high school, he was just flat out just tremendously better than everybody, 2-3 seconds better.
Yeah.
And then in college, he was finally in a position where, hey, there was some guys that were at his level, and he did just fine. But he had no training in terms of what sort of race environments or what he had to go through emotionally and mentally on a big stage. He didn't get to work through that stuff with 4 or 5 years in college. He had to do that on the biggest stage. And Donovan's not unpredictable at all. He's actually very consistent. Mm-hmm. He's very strong-minded. He does everything he can to win. Sometimes he just didn't know what he was doing out there because he was a youngster. And I think that you've seen over just the last 2 years that Donovan has become, he's proven that he's actually an incredibly consistent and championship runner, along the likes of, although he hasn't done anything in terms of the accolades as Mo Farah, but he's that type of guy that he's gonna fight you to the line, no matter what. And Donovan was really banged up this past summer. He had a bad foot, and I would say there was times when we were at 40%, 50%. It was just it was planner, so it wasn't something where we're just going to totally stop. And I thought there was some value of him actually getting through the summer. And we'd spoke with the doctors and so forth. And any runner who's had planner, it feels like it's something that you don't want to get out the door with, but at the same time, it's not something that should not always keeps you inside either from running. So he was battling that hard, but even Monaco, it's just, I could, the whole time, do I just pull him? Do I don't pull him? But he wants to race. If it might've been any other injury, I might've said, no, we're not going to do this. But it steadily got a little bit better over the summer, but he was in a lot of pain, for about 3 months, and he won everything.
Yeah. He was 10 for 10. What do you think is his better distance, the 800 or the 1500?
Oh, he's a half miler for sure.
Okay. Yeah. The Constant Osterhoffen, I enjoy her. I've watched her come up to the ranks, seen her in a lot of European races. I thought she had a wonderful Doha experience. Is she with your group all the time, or does she go back and forth between Europe and your group?
She's with our group all the time. She's with us right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Coco, when you say Constance, I think anybody on our team, if they end up watching this later, they're going to, who's that?
No, they call her Coco. Okay.
Yeah. Right, cool. Yeah, it's Coco. Okay. That's what she goes by. She's with our team. She got a stress fracture this summer, and we weren't going to be in the U.S. over the summertime. So she came with us over to Monaco, and we got her set up at to be able to get some, just where she could be at least in Europe, based there. And then the pandemic just continued to ramp up and so forth. And we worked to the point where even traveling over the U.S. was no longer, but she's here now, training well, and just happy to be getting some sunshine. And but we'll hopefully see her race this spring sometime. 5,000
or 10,000? What's her future?
She would tell you it's the mile.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think she's got great wheels. Yeah. I mean, I love seeing that. Yeah.
I think it's really undecided. Mm-hmm. She's never run a 10,000 meter on the track.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That'll be fun to see.
Right. So, when you have an athlete that young who medals at the World Championships in an event, I think you can. And she was second at the World at the Diamond League final in the 1500 at Safan. So I don't think we necessarily have to look at the jump up. She's certainly proven herself to be capable at those events. I would like to see her run a 10K, and I'm not a coach that always moves an athlete up just for the sake of moving. I don't really believe in that. But just based on what she does in workouts and so forth, I would think that there's probably something pretty special there over the 10K distance.
When you bring an athlete into your fold, what are you looking for?
So is it Epstein, who was the baseball manager I think he was for the Sox, and then he went over the Cubs. Mm-hmm. And I read a profile on him. This is a long time ago, and he said the stats. By the time a big money player is brought to him, he already knows they can play ball. He already knows.
Right.
But what makes them champions? And he says when those players walk into his office, he asks, "What are 3 things that you've overcome in your life that have nothing to do with baseball?"
Wow.
And that's how he's built not 1 championship team, but 2 championship team in places that just couldn't seem to win a World Series no matter what. So I don't know if that might just be more a romantic folklore than anything, but I use that. I like to see somebody who's got some grit to them, and that they're virtuous too. To me, that's a really important piece. I need to know that they're actually really good people and they're honest people who aren't going to really get caught up on too much drama and things like that, and that they're kind to one another and kind to others. That's a big deal for me. My team now I can't ever imagine being more happier with a group of athletes.
Wow.
And I've been coaching now for 20 years almost. This is by far just the most pleasant and cohesive group that I've ever had. Maybe there was a group when I was coaching at Metro State when I was my first job, just that was sort of a band of brothers there that I was coaching. That was just a really special time. But this group is altogether different. And I think people notice that too. Other teams and so forth, Donovan, Craig, Raven, Coco, Eric Jenkins, now Alexa Afrimson. It's just, these are all really wonderful people that actually make others smile, and they know that they work hard, and they're just hard not to love.
Let's talk about Eric Jenkins. I have some lovely pictures of him in that 27-22, which was screaming, man. Yeah. Were you surprised by that at all?
No, I wasn't, because Eric is, again, we train to race, so we know if the data is there. We knew that he was in that kind of fitness going in. My worry was in a race like that is, how are we going to be able to get enough some support on the front end? But Kez and Patrick Tiernan did such an awesome job. All 3 of them were just
and
then Sam Atkin helped lead out that first 5K. It just, in the night, was absolutely perfect, and Sound Running did just a wonderful job with the meet and safety and everything. So if you get all that stuff lined up and it's perfect and you got people to work together, running fast times, of course, they're super difficult, but they're certainly possible. And you saw that with a couple of Jerry's meets in the summer. If you can set up in these perfect conditions, because really most athletes, unless you're a Chep Tegay or even a Mo Farah, you never get the pace that you want. You never get the race situation you want or the pacers you want, or you just kind of take what you get what you get.
Yeah.
When Shannon Robery broke the American record in the 1500, she came through in 2:07, but I think Debaba came through in 2:02 that day or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Shannon had some other women around her, but she just had to take what she can get.
Yeah.
I got to believe that if you were to take 2 or 3 of our American women 1500 runners and we really set up just this perfect race for them, that we would see something like we saw from Shelby and Carissa in the 5K this summer, where I think we do have women that can run in the low 350s for 1500 and things like that. It's just the opportunities are so rare. But back to Eric, it was just one of those perfect things where everything lined up for a 20, I believe he's a low 27-minute guy.
Yeah.
And so it lined up and he finally got an opportunity. 10K is especially hard, because anytime you do get an international 10K, you look up at the pacing board and they say, okay, well, we want 13, 13:15 at the 5K mark.
Yeah.
Well, what does that do for 95% of the rest of the field?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now I'm just running on my own. So I really think that's an issue with the Diamond League meets.
Yeah.
We're all trying to one up each other and say every event is a world record attempt. And I think that's that's just kind of BS. We just need to get away from that. We need to make it more reasonable. Not that, hey, I'm saying I want slow races, but does every 5K men's need to be a 12:40 race? Can we set up some things for 13 minutes? Can we set up some, so it's actually a great race and we actually have people racing and so forth. But you've got a couple of these agents and athletes who are just putting out some of these ridiculous things. Women's 1500 especially. It's sometimes you just can't, you're just like, what? How does this suit anybody else out here except for maybe just one athlete? And then that athlete goes out and bonks it anyway. Yeah. And so it's ruined it for everybody. I know that's a big frustration for me and athletes. And certainly I know other coaches and so forth, right? Look, we gotta rein this in a little bit. We're just losing fans or athletes. Oh yeah. Able to do the things that they need to do. So
no, it's funny.
Another topic there.
Oh no, it's great. I had that conversation with Ian Stewart and David Bedford separately. Yeah. Both of them were going off on saying, look, these guys don't know how to race. How do they learn how to race? Because you watch a global 10,000, they go out slow, then they wind it up for 8 kilometers. And if you don't have that experience, how do you do it? If you don't have that experience running a 5,000 where the last mile is a 3:55 and you are all out in that last 800 meters. I mean, what did we watch Mo one time run a 1:50 over the last 800? How do you do that? You have to have that experience. And that's what I see. And I watch you. I've got to watch you in a few workouts with your athletes and, watch the different videos and stuff that are out there. And you brought something up that you prepare your athletes to race. And that's the beauty of it. That's what our sport's about. The things that I remember are the great races, That's what you remember too, and fast times are awesome. But let's talk about, I think Craig Engels is a great racer. I love watching him race, and I love watching him in close races. I would never bet against him in a close race. What's something we don't know about Craig?
Incredibly intelligent. Okay. Actually. And I wouldn't want anybody to be surprised by that because I think his wittiness comes from his intelligence.
Yes.
I believe Craig was the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year.
Oh, cool.
So Craig is incredibly bright, intelligent. Sometimes that gets in the way of some of the things that we try to do. But I'd also say what you see with Craig is actually who he is. Mm-hmm. He really, that personality that he has is infectious. And I would say it has been when he really changed things for me just in terms of how much I enjoy coaching. Mm-hmm. So when Craig came on, he just brightened my day. And
That's cool.
He really made coming to practice just a lot of fun. And there just never seems to be a bad day when Craig's around. And That's so even if it is a bad day, he'll be able to make light of it and get the other athletes around him. The positive energy is just great. And I know that both the men and all the men and women on the team, even when they're working out, you always hear Craig yelling out "yeet" or whatever these nonsensical things that he says. He yells out, but but it's a lot of fun having him around. And yeah, he's a hard worker. He's so passionate about it. I think he may come off as somebody who isn't sometimes, but that's a piece that people don't know about Craig as well. That it runs deep in him, and he really, really wants to be great.
Shannon Robery. I've known Shannon since high school.
Yeah.
And it was 2019. She was traveling with her little baby. And I came to I think we were in Belarus together for the match event. And I came through an airport in Germany and saw her juggling the baby. I think she was with her in-laws. And I put in my little notebook, if she can handle taking a baby globally around the world, this woman can handle anything. Where is she? What does she still want? Does she still want to achieve? She wants to make an Olympic team. This will be number 3?
This will be number 4.
Number 4. Okay.
Yeah. Shannon wants to win a medal.
Good.
She was what, a tenth of a second away from winning a medal in Rio.
Yeah.
She's won a medal in the World Championships outdoors and indoors. She was fifth. Was she fifth in London or sixth in London in the 1500? And then, of course, a couple of these women were
all five in front of her tested positive. Yeah, I mean, I just got into that one about an hour ago. So
right. So she, in her mind, I mean, and in mine, is that she has every right to go for those, and that's what we'll train for. So yeah, Shannon, obviously, she had a couple of struggle years athletically when Sienna was born, but to be expected and natural and these things. And she did a great job sort of managing that and having to prioritize her life. And last summer you can see that she's back on the way up, but there's even another, both Shannon and I both know that there's even one more level or even two. She's actually just kind of on her way back, and she's got a lot of momentum now. And gosh, she ran what, 14:44 or somewhere in there this past summer, and
that was a fun one. I thought that was pretty cool. I was there in Monaco when she ran. Her and Molly went at it, which I think still is one of the most underrated races by Americans ever. I mean, it was stride for stride. You've had Raven Rogers for a while now. Raven's a lot of fun. How is she fitting into your group?
Great. She's fantastic. I got a chance to just being an Oregonian and being around the state of Oregon and watching her at U of O. And so even though I'd like to think I'm a global coach, certainly, and even though I didn't go to University of Oregon, all my family did and so forth. So I do always have a passing interest of what's happening there. And just watching her career there was just amazing. And she had joined a different team, but any coach or athlete recognizes the talent and that championship mindset that she has. And I was approached by her in the fall, and that maybe it was a time for a change. And I think everything was actually going really well out there with Ajay's group and Coach Derek. She was actually really happy, and all the women very nice, and she had a wonderful experience. I believe part of it is Oregon is somewhat home to her now, and certainly she's from Houston, and that's definitely a home to her too. But the West Coast, it just felt like she was coming back, and having Donovan, and where we've had some success in the 800 in the middle distances with Donovan and Craig, that certainly helped. And because she could recognize that, well, we could at least get the job done. And, but she's been awesome. It's the summer, she just wasn't in very good shape, but she still managed to do pretty solid. But she's increased her fitness ever since. And I'm tremendously excited to watch her race this winter if we could race.
Now, your newest athlete to the group is Alexa Afrimson. I've watched Alexa for several years. She's a very talented athlete. I thought she was very classy with what she said about Mike Hickey, her former coach, and how she was enjoying being in your program. How is she fitting into the program?
Fantastic. She's awesome. So Alexa is living across the river. She went to, Camas High School, which is just across the river in the state of Washington, across the Columbia River from Portland. But then she went to University of Portland and so forth. So to complete her studies, and I'm good friends with Coach Hickey. So that it was a situation where I think Alexa just recognized it was time to try to make a change. Mike deserves a tremendous amount of credit. He had this phenom high school athlete, and he's kept her relevant for really the most challenging time between 18 and 22 years old for a young athlete, and maybe even more so for a young female athlete. yet she was able to run 403s and 404s, and these would be top level D1 times, if not the best by 3 or 4 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So Mike had almost an impossible task, and Alexa and Mike were able to work together. And actually, I think he did a phenomenal job. But I think after that time frame, I think Mike or Alexa and probably even Mike recognized that we gotta push you out of the nest a little bit.
Yeah.
Mike and I have a really great relationship, and he knows a lot what I'm about and the training that I do and so forth. And so I think that since I would hope that he spoke highly of me as much as I would expect he would, that's why Alexa, she reached out to me. Mm-hmm. And she's been awesome. She's getting her butt kicked every single day by Coco and Raven, and I'm even throwing there with the guys sometimes and so forth. So it's the first time that she's been sometimes 100 meters back fighting for her life. Sure. But she recognizes that, hey, when she looks up there and she sees Raven or she sees Coco, or when Jessica gets here and so forth, and when Shannon's actually in San Francisco right now, but when she's training with them, that, hey, that's medals. That's where I need to be in training if I want to be there and racing. Mm-hmm. And she's really embraced that, and she's just a fantastic, wonderful person too. So she's been great.
Well, it sounds like you're in coaching heaven right now, my friend, and I can see it from the smile on your face that you're in a good place. And I look forward to seeing you and your athletes compete. I've always enjoyed, especially after the New Balance indoor, when you'd have the guys out and the girls out on the track cranking out a few things, and just getting to watch you in action with them. And they're having a good time too, and they're running fast. So let's
late
get
into the night. We're always the last ones there. It's us and the hardworking custodians.
Yes,
and it's why they have the success they do. And so we'll keep doing that. So keep sticking around at the end of these meets.
All right, Pete, thank you so much. Thank you for the time. Stay safe in Scottsdale. This is Larry Eder with Socialing the Distance. We've just had Pete Julian, who is the coach of a Nike-based club and one of our favorite coaches, and always a guy we see at meets all over the world. I see you more in Europe, actually, than I ever see you in the U.S., but it's always good to see, and there's always a great story. So stay safe, my friend. Thank you again.
You as well.
My best to your athletes. This is Larry Eder, Socialing the Distance, signing off. If you like Run Blog Run, sign up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you like these videos, subscribe on YouTube. All right. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks, Pete. Hey, sports fans, Larry Eder, Socialing the Distance. Today we featured Pete Julian. He's the coach of a Nike-based club. Known Pete for probably close to 2 decades, and he's a great example of why coaching is both art and science. He's a man who understands it all. I think he's in the greatest job that he could ever want, and you can see from his demeanor how happy he is and how much he enjoys what he's doing. He's coaching, Coco. So Constance Klosterhoffen, as some know her in her German name, but she's known as Coco among the group. Craig Engels, Shannon Robery. Donovan Brazier just brought in Raven Rogers. I think I did say Craig Engels, and then also Alexa Afrimson. And then Eric Jenkins. And so he's got a nice group. From the 800 meters to the 10,000 meters. And they're down in Scottsdale, Arizona, and got to chat about each one of the athletes. So let's see, who do we begin with? Coco, Constance Klosterhoffen, the fine European athlete who's training with them. She thinks she's a miler. I look at her and go, wow, 5,000, 10,000. And I think Pete is open to wherever she goes and wherever she wants to go. He doesn't seem to really kind of push her. I think he lets them kind of do a natural lead for themselves and helps develop them. Craig Engels. Craig is, I always see Craig as a bit of a goofball, but I know behind that goofball exterior lies someone who's pretty darn smart and someone who understands the event that they're in, and Pete gets that, and I think Craig makes him chuckle a lot and smile a bit, and that's what it's all about. Um, then you've got Shannon Robery, and Shannon is really, after most recent child, has just really, Sienna, just has really come back. This last summer was phenomenal, 1444 at 5,000. And Pete knows that she can hit another level. And she wants a world championship and or Olympic medal again. And we want to encourage her to do that. Raven Rogers, Raven, silver medalist in the World Championships. Raven is one of the newest additions to the group, and she's doing quite well. She's fit into the group pretty well. And you've got Donovan Brazier. Donovan's the gold medalist at the 800 meters from Doha. Had some challenges this last summer, but is coming along well. Had some foot issues, plantar fascia. But I like the way Pete talked about it. He said that it wasn't going to damage him, and he thought that he could learn something from the experience. And those are some of the intangibles that coaches have to deal with, especially coaches who are trying to take athletes to that highest level, where the difference between winning a medal and losing is so much of its attitude. I also liked that Alexa Afrimson. Alexa was a high school phenom, and her coach Mike Hickey took her for the last 10 years and really helped develop her. And Mike and Pete are friends, and Pete is now going to be taking her to the next over the next time period. And I think those are challenges, but those are mature decisions, and those are the kind of things we've got to do in track and field to help develop that next level of athletes. Pete also said something else about it's great to have a 12:45K, but what about a 13-minute 5K where people have to actually race? We've got to hone racing skills. That's what fans love. I don't think they care about really fast times. Geeks do, but world championships aren't about world records most of the time. They're about who's competing on that day the best. And a coach's job is to prepare that athlete to be ready at that time. I remember a conversation with, two, with one with David Bedford and one with Ian Stewart, both great British runners, who both told me that when you get into a final of a championship, there's a few of the people who are out of it, but there's 5 or 6 who are there who could medal. And I think that's something that I look at every time I watch a championship race. Who's going to do it? Who wants it the most? Bill Toomey, the 1968 Olympic decathlon champion, said, to win a gold medal, you got to be the one who covets it the most. I think he was a little spectacular there, but I think Pete Julian gets it, that his athletes want to achieve things, and his job is to be that conduit to help them achieve things. I've got to say, the interview with Pete Julian was a blast. He's always a lot of fun. I get to see him on the far corners of the world with his athletes, and he's got a lovely group, and I hope to see all of them out there. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun. This is our epilogue to Socialing the Distance, where we featured Pete Julian, who's the coach of a Nike-based club down in Scottsdale, Arizona, for some training during the winter, during this pandemic, where everybody's trying to stay safe. And please stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask indoors always, wear a mask outdoors when you can't be 6 to 12 feet separated. Stay aware of your surroundings. Be careful. We want to see you next season. If you like RunBlogRun, sign up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. If you love us, subscribe on YouTube. Thanks to Mike Deering for producing this and putting up with all my diatribes. And again, thanks to Pete Julian for finding the time today to chat with us. He was a breath of fresh air. Talk to you soon.